Dear Chosen One, there has always been a calmness within you that defies conventional understanding. It is not only influenced by your personality, habits, or life circumstances. It is a holy thread that was woven into your being before you breathed your first breath, a divine inscription in the depths of your awareness. My eyes. While you were still forming in the dark places, God marked you, sealed you, and whispered destiny into your soul. This is neither a motivational slogan nor a flattering metaphor. This is a vacation. You're His property. You've been selected. You are currently experiencing a holy impulse that is moving you toward fulfillment, a power that has been awakened and is reserved for those who have been appointed for the latter days. It is now time to put that stirring into action. Furthermore, my current statement is not intended for the audience or casual listeners. This statement ignores inquiry and comfort. No, it is aimed at the person who has stood the test of fire, who has persevered amid betrayal, and who has carried a heavy cross while refusing to abandon faith. This is for you, the unseen envoy whom the world ignores, the person wielding a calm but dangerous authority that frightens the darkness. You are not the only one who carries this. Even now, your life is full of divine power. It is extremely uncommon. It is deadly to the enemy's strategy. It gives off a paradise-like perfume. I am committed to assisting you in recognizing the signs, explanations, and confirmations that this celestial advantage is present in you as you were expressly chosen to have it. The historical record is not devoid of references to God's proclivity to elevate specific voices at important junctures. Ehit. In Noah's time, a single individual may change the course of history. For Israel, a single shepherd was the means of salvation. A single prophet unleashed fire, creating tremors throughout the nation. However, in these end days, God is constructing a network, a dispersed group of messengers hiding in plain sight throughout nations. Mothers, laborers, students, instructors, and neighbors on the street, despite their common look, are dressed in light armor in the domain beyond your sight. You, the Chosen One, are one of them. The end-time fight will be unprecedented, which is why this angelic force has been saved for this occasion. The contrast between light and dark has been emphasized. As spiritual warfare has grown, God has determined that His witnesses must have more than just courage and Bible knowledge. He is giving them the ability to stand in the gap, the speed to finish missions, the protection from assaults, the discernment to accurately interpret the times, and the clarity to obey divine commands. He is also giving them celestial authority. Angels carry out God's objectives with accuracy, and His messengers now have the same weight of responsibility. This achievement cannot be repeated by the adversary. Darkness is unable to develop its own version of this gift because it stems from the throne rather than human effort. If you've ever had the impression that cryptic breadcrumbs of paradise were sprinkled along your route, small and subtle but impossible to miss, you've been seeing with more than your physical eyes. By reviewing your life's chapters, you can recall how many times tragedy should have ended it. Despite a dire prognosis, a betrayal that should have crushed you, and a split second in traffic, you persevered. Those times were not the product of arbitrary survival, but of covenant preservation. The same God who sent angels to safeguard Daniel in the lion's den and the three in the furnace has commanded guardians to surround you. You're accompanied by unseen sentries. Do not be scared. I am present. Do not be afraid. I am your God. Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10. This is not hyperbole. It is witness, proof that the intended recipient has been protected by the divine. Have you noticed that people behave differently in your presence for no apparent reason? Some people are instantly drawn to you, and they fall into a state of relaxation that they were previously unaware of. They confide in you, seek comfort, and rely on you in unexpected ways. Others feel angry, shift away, or recoil when a simple welcome is not returned. The polarity in question is not a reflection of your personality, but rather the magnetic field of a spirit charged by the heavens. Light is present wherever you go. You cannot feel at ease in the presence of darkness. Spirits can see what your eyes cannot, and this metamorphosis indicates the presence of a celestial garment. Also, consider the weird timing of strangers who come as if they have the answers, only to vanish as if they never existed. Consider the words uttered to you with surgical precision, statements that resonate with the anguish you're feeling, even if the speaker is unaware of it. Or recall the nights of prayer when a tangible presence settled in the room, not as a threatening presence, but as a hand of comfort that prompted tears to flow and an exhausted heart to sigh. Some people have unwittingly entertained angels by inviting outsiders, according to Hebrews. Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 2. It's probable that this was also true for you. Heaven has frequently intervened in your life in seemingly insignificant ways that you subsequently came to understand. You have developed the ability to withstand weights that others cannot. They are broken when betrayal strikes at the center, storms continue, and pain turns into a hole. You were not spared hardship. You faced grief, bleeding, and the uncertainty of whether the light would ever shine. Nonetheless, you persisted. That resilience is not an accident. It is an indication of angelic support. The sovereign monarch noticed a fourth figure walking alongside Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego as they passed into the furnace, a presence evocative of the Son of God. You, like me, have been through fires, and while the heat was intense, you were not alone. That very survival, that willful endurance, when everything around you said, "end," is proof of the angelic force that surrounds you. You may also have observed that the atmosphere shifts as you speak. When a scriptural truth is revealed in faith, circumstances begin to change. When you stimulate wounded spirits, chains appear to relax and hope returns. This isn't emotional optimism. This is a position of authority. God has given you a voice that will unleash heaven. When a human speaks God's word with faith, angels answer. Your assertions are not just statements. They are commands that are imported and used to move realms. This explains why the adversary is so determined to silence you. He understands the value of your words. From infancy, you may have felt alienated, never really comfortable among your peers, and mismatched with the preferences, humor, and aspirations of those around you. You inquired, "What is the matter with me?" The explanation you wanted was straightforward. There is nothing wrong with you. Something sacrosanct is in order. You were created to be an ambassador of heaven, not a citizen of this age. Jesus prayed that his disciples, like himself, would not be of this world. John, chapter 17, verse 16. And the detachment you felt was not rejection. It was a feeling of direction, as your soul was tuned to a frequency different from the noise. You are being prepped for a mission that requires a person with unyielding character. Have you ever considered why your adversaries seem to choose you out? What is the basis for the continual accumulation of spiritual stresses in your life that would overwhelm the unprepared? The reason is because you jeopardize the enemy's aims. The devil does not pay attention to trivial ambitions. He focuses his fire on regions where the threat is most severe. Your repeated attacks demonstrate that you possess a valuable mantle. Every restless night, every attack, and every whispered falsehood designed to make you question are proof that heaven has crowned you in ways you cannot see. If you're concerned about the kingdom of darkness, you should be aware of this reality. You've already been crowned by the heavenly realm. People continue to contact you with their concerns. Strangers share their difficulties. Friends seek your advice and consolation for no apparent reason. The magnetic pull is not acquired. It is designated. The Lord's Spirit has led others to seek refuge in you. It is unnecessary for you to know all the answers. You are simply required to function as a conduit. The deeper the well of revelation, the more you press in, and the hunger you experience is a sign. Messengers, as opposed to those who are content with surface luxuries, are hungry for profundity, deep character, closeness, and revelation. It is not inconvenient to have this longing for God. It indicates that angelic assistance is impacting your development. Your life's detours, delays, and disappointments were not meant to be punishment. They wielded influence. Shortcuts were unavailable, seasons appeared to slow, and doors remained closed. These were part of a refining process that changed you into a vessel capable of sustaining and directing a power greater than your weight. Each trial has worked as a sculptor's tool, shaping the messenger you are today. This is an example of prophetic living. The remarkable outcome of regular routines. Angelic power is immense. It is not a spectacle device or a badge of pride. God did not give it to you so that you may boast. He donated it because the world is in darkness, and many people are blind. He needs voices that will not distort the truth, will not sacrifice love for popularity, and will preserve their integrity when the church is tempted to compromise. Integrity, fidelity to Scripture, humility in authority, and boldness in sacrifice are all required for this talent. It requires that you act as a conduit between heaven and earth, working for souls rather than for praise. The tools of an emissary are simple yet effective. A mouth that proclaims the message of God with conviction. Obedience that invites angels to move with might, and prayer that connects earth and heaven. Only a constant, strong, and unwavering love can ultimately demolish the evil at its core. When you align with God's heart, you have greater access to angelic power. The days ahead will be difficult. Darkness is empowered, and long-held predictions are coming true. However, the retinue of heaven ascends along with it. You are not a solitary hero. Instead, you are part of a growing cohort. A willingness to stand where others fall, words that cut hardened hearts, wonders that affirm, and intensification are all to be expected. Regardless of the increased opposition, the angelic presence that surrounds you will continue to shield, battle, and advance through you. Please be aware that you are not a coincidence. Heaven intended that you receive the message, which is why it was conveyed to you. If you've ever been skeptical, wondering if God could genuinely summon someone like me, this is for you. It's vital to notice that He does contact you. You are one of the chosen end-time messengers, one of the rare ones. Many will be bewildered and ridiculed. God's servants are familiar with that worldview. Noah was mocked before the weather began. Moses was questioned until the water divided. Fire reacted to Elijah's pursuit. Even the Son of Man was denied until the resurrection confirmed the authenticity of the cross. I expect a misunderstanding. Allow it to serve as affirmation rather than discouragement. Maintain this reality. You have never been ignored by the watchers in paradise. Angels aren't just abstractions. They are God's agents, serving those whom He intends to employ. You are not average nor forgotten. You are handpicked and endowed with power beyond this world's capabilities. It is not necessary to wait till a later date to enter it. The seal has already been applied on your essence. The mantle is already lying on your shoulders. Commence immediately. Speak with confidence. Travel with the presence of paradise as a companion. When you take a daring step forward, light arises. Chains are shattered when someone speaks with conviction. Angels are present when you merely arrive. Avoid further uncertainty. This is your chance to radiate His brilliance. God has stated that the world will see His glory through ordinary vessels who dare to be faithful, not for fame or self-promotion. Therefore, lift your head. Make sure your shoulders are upright. Take a big breath and declare your uniqueness. Speak with me. I've been chosen. I am God's messenger at the end of the age. I possess celestial strength and will carry out my divine purpose. Allow that vow to echo and serve as a banner in your mind. Please join me in prayer. Father, I am thankful for this listener. I appreciate your efforts to secure them and identify them as your messengers. Transmit your angelic energy into their lives. Protect, defend, and guide them. They were chosen, shielded, and unstoppable. May they go fearlessly in their calling. We intercede via Jesus. Amen. If this word has reached your spirit, do not allow it to disintegrate into sentimentality. Provide testimony. Please express your belief that I am God's messenger at the end of time in the comments area. If you were impacted by this video and feel compelled to respond, please consider it. Every small donation helps to spread light and hope. Please subscribe to stay connected as we traverse these difficult times together, with the help of God. Please keep in mind that you are not alone. You've been appointed. You are not diminutive. You are really important. You are not without authority. You've been anointed. What heaven already knows will be witnessed by the universe. You are one of them. Nothing more. Today, I am hearing the Spirit's words placed on my heart for you. Dear chosen one, it is no coincidence that you have come here today. I'd like to address you before beginning any explanations, teachings, or demonstrations of the concepts that I believe God wants you to understand today. Congratulations. Not as a greeting, but as a declaration of your life, a recognition of the weight you've been carrying in silence, the weight of a season that made little sense from the outside, provided little return for an extended period of time, and no one around you could completely understand or explain. Despite your doubts and faith, tiredness and fortitude, you persevered. Today, I'd like to demonstrate that the experience you've been going through has a name. Suffering isn't without purpose. It is not a delay in the absence of a design. It is the harshest type of divine testing, as well as the most hidden, because secrecy is not a flaw in the procedure. The act of keeping secrets is in itself. The subject matter that God analyzes in this particular test cannot bear observation. The length of the moment, the strange and unexplained length of it, was not proof that He forgot. It could only happen between you and Him at moments that no one else saw. It demonstrated His belief in your potential to alter what was in the process of being created. The test is over, and the values it instilled in you are worth more than any price. Please stay with me, because you will not only understand your experience by the conclusion of today. Pascal, the person you've grown into will be realized. This moment was not yours to choose. This moment was chosen expressly for you. And I do not intend this as a source of comfort. Rather, it is a declaration of how God works. He does not squander appointments. He does not send this type of communication to the wrong address. Congratulations if you recognized self-awareness in my preceding sentence or felt a sense of calm after hearing the word. This identification is not a coincidence. At that point, God is authenticating the words He already spoke to you in secret. Before we start, I'd like to inform you about the contents of this communication. The stuff I have for you becomes more significant as we proceed, and I would prefer that you do not leave until you have fully accepted it. By the end, you will understand the 5 particular characteristics that confirm the exam is behind you in real life, not just in theory. You will understand the internal turmoil that you experienced during the most difficult times of this season. You will understand the current circumstances, and I will make a comment about your life that I am convinced you will remember for a long time before this message ends. Persist till the end. The following information is a progression. I'd like to start by alerting you that the majority of people who have gone through the same situation as you have never heard about it because no one has mentioned it to them. When an event is not labeled, it is extremely difficult to understand, and if it is not understood, it might become the narrative you carry, rather than an episode that occurred inside an existing narrative. There is a type of divine testing that differs from ordinary adversity, despite the fact that it is not considerably more painful. This sort of testing is, in some ways, the most torturous, but it differs in its design, mechanics, and impact on the person who suffers it. The first feature of this test that I want you to understand is its implementation. There is no announcement regarding this examination. There is no moment when God sits you down and gives you a glimpse. There is no warning, time frame, or instruction manual. You might not notice anything has changed at first because it begins quietly and without ceremony. Life becomes much more onerous in ways that are difficult to describe. There is no set schedule for this examination. This test does not bring the same level of comfort as other difficult seasons, in which one can see a horizon and feel the movement of events towards a resolution. There is no visible arc, no moment when the pace accelerates towards something better. It is simply a continuation, and the continuance is part of the design, not proof that nothing is happening. There is no visible result from this examination. You pray, but the response is not tangible. The reward does not manifest in an obvious way to others, but you remain devoted. The environment around you does not change at a rate that evokes a sense of progress, but you continue to advance. As a result, you begin to question whether God exists, whether He is present, and whether your commitment is being recognized. I'd also like to answer that inquiry. That inquiry is not part of the exam. That inquisition is the expense of taking part in a test designed to be conducted in secret. When you become aware that you are being observed, something within you activates. You become more cautious in your replies, deliberate in your actions, and aware of your looks. That is not indicative of weakness. This is the natural process by which humans are made. However, God's goal in delivering this exam was not your performance. He was looking for your personality, the unguarded version of you who appears at 3 a.m. when no one is present and nothing is working, the version who persists in prayer despite the fact that it feels like speaking into a wall, and the version who refuses to abandon even when abandonment would have been logical. It is not feasible to perform that iteration on you. It can only be disclosed. As a result, the test was designed to eliminate the audience by creating a situation that was sufficiently silent, long, and dark to ensure that the only thing standing between you and God was your genuine self. Consider Joseph's life, a young guy with a rare talent, a gift, a vision, and a quality that even those harboring anger could see. Furthermore, he had every reason to believe that his life was about to take a big turn from an outside perspective. Then everything went wrong. He was sold by people who were meant to protect him, taken as a slave to another country, and imprisoned on false charges. For a lengthy period of time, there appeared to be no explanation from heaven, no observable progress, no time frame, just a guy trapped in an abyss that deepened. He wasn't aware that he was being tested. He was ignorant that the treachery was only the beginning, and that the prison served as a staging ground for an event that required the exact character that the prison was cultivating. He simply lived it day after day, unwavering in his dedication to the circumstance, even when it offered no justification for his conduct. And the following is what I need you to hear. The demonstration occurred in the ditch. The palace was simply the place where it was declared. By the time Joseph appeared before Pharaoh, the material being presented was not new. It was an object that had been slowly and invisibly built over the course of years, appearing to be nothing in the same darkness in which he had been placed. That is not an example of archaic history. That is your tale. The same is true for David, who was anointed privately, without an audience, platform, or proclamation of what was to come. Then came years of obscurity and faithfulness in a sector where no one of significance was watching. The precise qualities that would one day matter were cultivated in circumstances that seemed unrelated to his objective. The audience observed David's bravery as he emerged to face Goliath. However, what they were seeing was the result of years of stealthy evolution that no one saw and no record was maintained of. The demonstration took place in the field. The platform was the only place where it was visible. And there is one feature of this pattern, one aspect of how God works, that I would like to inculcate in you right now, since we will be revisiting it. A Hebrew term from the old literature perfectly captures God's deeds in both of those episodes, as well as your own. I'll explain what that term means in a moment, since the season you've been through will look quite different to you once you understand the true meaning of the events God has documented in your life. Please refrain from doing so, as I have one more point to address. This examination is not given to all people. I am not saying this to make you feel special in a superficial way. I claim it because it is undeniable, and understanding it is critical for everything that follows. This assessment is given to those who have a specific job, people whose responsibilities are so significant that traditional times of struggle are insufficient preparation. Individuals who need extensive development, including trust, character, and the ability to keep their identity in the face of chronic stress. Your fault is unaffected by the severity of your examination. It serves as a reminder of your assignment. You were imprisoned in a furnace that you did not choose to enter, and I understand that the heat was the only sensation you felt in the furnace's center. However, I'd like to show you the true actions of the heat, the events that occurred beneath the surface, in a way that was beyond your ability to see or quantify over the long and unnoticeable season. And after you've seen it, everything will start to make sense. You are precisely where you should be. And if this is the first time you've heard it today, welcome back. In the recently completed segment of this sermon, we reviewed the test, its appearance, the importance of its concealment, and how God used the same pattern in Joseph, David, and other people who were destined to bear something big. And I informed you that the Bible had a word, an ancient Hebrew term, that accurately described God's acts. I'd like to convey it to you at this moment. Bakan is the term. The Bible says, "For you, God, tested us. You refined us like silver." Psalm 66:10. Bakan is the phrase that translates to tested. And most people link the term tested with an examination, a moment when God determines whether or not you pass, a moment when you either succeed or fail. However, this is not the initial meaning of the name Bakan. Bakan was originally used to describe a process that is strikingly similar to the work of an assayer when certifying precious metals. An assayer does not heat gold in order to assess whether it may be converted into gold. Gold is already gold. The assayer fires it to check its authenticity, identify real from counterfeit, and swear to its validity so that the public can witness its underlying truth. Additionally, this changes the following. Every moment of doubt counts against you if God was testing you to see if you were sufficient. Every day of exhaustion has an impact on your record. Every prayer that felt false, every moment when you battled to believe, and every time you wondered why became a source of frustration. However, if God were testing you in the same way that an assayer analyzes metal in order to authenticate what was already within you, your story would be very different. He discovered the faithfulness that appeared at 3 a.m. when no one was paying attention and no one would ever notice. He noticed the requests provided, notwithstanding their hollowness, because they were selected rather than felt. What he discovered was the decision to stay in a season that provided every reason to quit, repeatedly. He didn't check to see if you were adequately faithful. He was confirming your existence before the heavens and earth. The gold was always gold. It was not produced by the furnace. The furnace confirmed its authenticity, eradicated all impropriety, and proved its veracity beyond any reasonable doubt. You've always been who you are. This season made it irrefutable. I am now going to show you a concrete example, as the assayer's fire, which is responsible for the concealed season, was affecting 3 different parts of your existence. There were 3 activities taking place beneath the surface that were unseen to the outside world, yet were very genuine. Incubation was the fundamental reason of the apparent isolation. Development was the source of the apparent delay. However, the impression of perplexity was primarily the product of calibration. It was truly being developed, despite the fact that it felt forgotten. The first activity of the fire was to destroy identities that were never genuinely yours. Prior to this season, certain components of your self-perception were not fully established. Identities conferred to you due to others' expectations. You took up the positions because they were available rather than because they were calling. A sense of self that was inextricably related to your ability to produce, your looks, and the acceptance of others around you in ways you might not have completely understood. And the season, without your awareness or cooperation, began disassembling those goods. No, it wasn't malicious. It wasn't arbitrary. It was precise. Because the items being withdrawn were not intended to suit the upcoming modifications. The version of you who sought regular external affirmation would have crumbled under the weight of the obligations that God is going to bestow upon you. The version of you defined by your apparent output would have been broken in the seasons of invisible fruitfulness that lie ahead. You were not destroyed by the flames. It was the erasure of what was never meant to be there, leaving only you. The second function of the inferno was to develop capability that would not have been possible under more favorable conditions. Characteristics that are unique to specific situations are present. In times of abundance, lasting trust does not emerge since it does not require proof to function. Comfortable circumstances do not foster compassionate discernment, which is the ability to detect clearly while one's emotions are fully engaged. Silent faithfulness is the act of remaining present and doing the right thing in the absence of reward, acknowledgement, or logical justification for doing. This is not a subject that can be learned through discussion or taught in a classroom. It has been erected. It was built within you during the long and hidden season, on days that appeared to be worthless from the outside. Individuals who have received this type of training possess a quality that is both impossible to duplicate and counterfeit. They have a sense of steadiness, the ability to face misfortune without being overwhelmed by it, Their skill to navigate pressure is easily apparent to anyone who has been in a similar scenario. Currently, you are hauling that object. It is inside you. In addition, it is not going away. The final action of the fire was to purify the relationship landscape around you. I am aware that this is a tricky situation, and I want to express it precisely because the relational losses of a disguised season differ from other losses. They arrive in the midst of the various burdens you are already carrying, adding a layer of pain that cannot be easily removed. A few people departed. Some ties you thought were long-term simply collapsed or were taken away in such a sad way that you are still feeling the consequences. I would like to respond honestly to that. Every relationship that failed this season did so because it was not customized to the destination. It wasn't because those people were undesirable, not because you failed them or because they failed you in a definitive way. However, the season you are entering requires a specific sort of firm. Individuals who enjoy God's actions without bitterness. Individuals who understand the language of someone who has been influenced by silence. Individuals who can handle the weight of their own development without having to reduce it in order to feel comfortable. Dissipating relationships created space. And something is already being placed in that location. I previously said that I wanted to revisit a finding. Something built on decades of neuroscience study. Something nearly undetectable about the internal activities of a specific sort of person during a long time of spiritual development. Scientists studying the gamma brainwave, which is connected with increased spiritual receptivity, genius-level clarity, and deep intuition, identified a link that is directly relevant to the matter at hand. They refer to it as the decline effect. The process by which this specific frequency, which was naturally high in you as a child and the reason you once learned quickly, felt profoundly, and moved through life with an ease that you find difficult to fully describe now, begins to suppress under the sustained pressure of modern life. The significance is as follows. Individuals with a certain job feel this suppression more intensely than the general population due to higher gamma levels. The difference between the person you believe you are called to be and the person you are now is a measurable gap of a frequency that was never destroyed, merely latent. After more than 30 years of research in this field, a neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake has distilled his findings into a topic that I'd like to explore with you. His research, in collaboration with the work of institutions such as MIT and Princeton, has uncovered a specific 7-minute technique that has the capacity to reverse this suppression, reactivate what was always present, and return you to the frequency you were always meant to have. In a moment, I'll give you a full explanation of what this is and why it matters in your current circumstance. However, I must first illustrate something necessary, as the season's finale is not widely perceived. And I'd like to present you with a specific item, 5 different markers that confirm in your own life, not in theory, not in another person's story, that the test is over and the next chapter has begun. When you examine these 5 signatures, you will understand what I've stated today on a whole new level. Please remain with me. When I promised you the 5 signatures, I said they would dramatically alter the depth of the knowledge I had presented with you today. That's what I planned. Because these markers are not abstract. These are items that you can study and identify in your own life right now. The initial signature indicates a shift in your ambitions. Ani, prior to the test's end, you were pursuing specific objectives with a sense of almost desperate urgency. You needed precise results, validations, and objectives to feel like you were making progress in life. Furthermore, there was a change in the last few weeks or months. Things that were formerly deemed crucial are now regarded as less urgent. Not because you abandoned them or stopped caring about them, but because something within you has been resolved and you no longer need them in the same way. You stopped requiring the outcome to justify your worth. And that shift, that imperceptible relaxation of the grip, does not imply resignation. That is the sign of someone who has discovered security in a source greater than their successes. The second signature is silent and was obtained without authorization. The frequent assessment of situations, the nervous monitoring of signals, and the mental scanning of whether things are better or deteriorating have reduced noise. A sensation of calm has formed, which contradicts your current situation. Peace is not naivety if your circumstances have not altered dramatically, but something within you feels more resolved than it did 6 months ago. That is proof. One of the most obvious signs that something has changed at a rate that your circumstances have not yet caught up with is peace that does not correspond to your surroundings. Third signature, some details have become evident. Not every facet, not a full roadmap, just specific items. A direction in which you are aware that you are expected to progress. You are convinced that this connection is appropriate. A judgment that was before difficult to make is now perfectly logical. Clarity does not return quickly following a protracted period of fog. It returns in exact and particular bits, similar to light passing through a tight opening and gradually expanding. The third signature is obtained when you have noticed at least one aspect of your life in which the confusion has subsided and something has become indisputably clear to you. That is the purification that takes place when the fire is out. The fourth signature is the ability to imagine once again. For an extended stretch of time during the examination, the prospect of a bright future appeared to be dangerous. The disappointment of anticipating and not seeing had become its own type of weight, and it was imperative to protect oneself from it. However, an entity has recently resurfaced. A slight ability to foresee a positive future. Consider the future without securing oneself. To plan with purpose rather than in a frenzy. Wishful thinking is not the cause of that renewed faith. This symbolizes your ability to reactivate after a protracted period of being in survival mode. The fifth signature is the emergence of connections that arrive in a unique way. Individuals with an energy that is distinct from the connections that surrounded you during the assessment. Conversations that seem to be progressing. Opportunities that were unachievable 6 months ago are now manifesting, not because of your efforts, but because they have arrived. As if something in the invisible world was discreetly moving the pieces while you were in the fire, the suitable persons and openings are surfacing. It is not a coincidence if you have seen any of these goods come. That marks the seasonal transition. I'd like to give you one more bit of advice. This one comes from the Greek language. Paul wrote a letter, and in the 5th chapter of Romans, he addresses a subject that many people ignore because they believe they are already aware of its importance. He claims that perseverance arises from hardship, and that perseverance generates character, which generates optimism. The term dokim is translated as character in that passage. And dokimi does not simply denote character in the way we today use the term, as if it were merely a description of one's personality. Dokime is a test-validated character. It is the same phrase used in ancient times to designate cash that had been checked and proclaimed real, approved, or certified. The significance is as follows. The test not only left you with a wound, but it also produced a document known as a certification. The version of yourself that emerged from the conflagration is not warped. Rather, it is approved and confirmed. The version that was examined during the testing process and deemed genuine without any doubt. You not only make it through the exams, but you also serve as proof that it was beneficial. This is the point at which David's story goes beyond mere educational history. There was no public ceremony, no proclamation to the kingdom, and no evident change in David's situation when Samuel anointed him. He returned to the field, the livestock, and the long, quiet, routine days that had come before. He had no idea what was about to happen in that dimension back then. He didn't walk around with the certainty that a throne was being constructed for him. He proceeded to complete the chores that were directly in front of him, attending to the responsibilities that had been entrusted to him while remaining firm in the minor, invisible, and unrecorded tasks. During those years, he was cultivating a quality that no classroom or shortcut could have matched. A self-sufficient sense of identity that did not require external confirmation to maintain stability, a deeper trust than comprehension, and a characteristic of quiet under strain. When Goliath approached, David did not vacillate in the way that people who had only been nurtured in affluent surroundings might. He wasn't displaying fortitude. He was operating from a site within himself that had been built in a field where no one of significance was present, discreetly and quietly. The demonstration took place in the field. The public moment was just the location at which it became visible. Your season in the field is coming to an end, and the changes that occurred over the long, tranquil days that no one was chronicling are about to become apparent in ways you haven't yet noticed. However, first, I must specify something. The difference between knowing one has passed an exam and receiving the following step is enormous. I see a definite pattern in the chosen at this threshold, one that, if left unnamed, can leave an individual standing at the threshold of their intended outcome, unable to cross through. The first component of that pattern is a conviction so strong that you may be unaware of its existence. It is the belief that the good things on the horizon are too fantastic to be true for you individually. It is possible that these nice things are true for others, but there is a particular aspect of your tale, such as the duration of the wait or the nature of the fight, that prevents you from receiving the complete version of what is to come. As a result, you will most likely obtain a reduced version of the nice things on the horizon, with conditions attached. The firestorm was the root of that conviction. It acted as a precaution. When the environment provides little stimulation for an extended period of time, the mind stops anticipating much as a way of coping with the agony of disappointment. That is not indicative of weakness. That is the operation of judgment amid a difficult time. However, the season has changed, and that conviction has not yet been brought into line. The second component of the pattern is a specific form of uncertainty that appears as soon as the good starts to materialize. It is not a question of denying God or your calling. Rather, it is a calm evaluation of what is wrong. This response grabs hold of the blessing and quickly begins to look for the catch, doubting if it is genuine, whether it will last, and whether it would result in greater disappointment than if you had not hoped at all. I'd like to approach that reflex with the same consideration as if I were in your presence right now. This ambiguity does not indicate a lack of trust. That is intelligence that has learned to be wary about hope through adversity, and it deserves sympathy rather than contempt. However, it is also worthy of gentle release, for the impending test is not a trap, and the God who designed it did not bring you through it just to build a door that cannot be opened. I'll say something to you before this letter ends that I'm convinced will stay with you for a long time. Along with you, I shall make a declaration that I desire for you to remember in every following moment. Please stick with me for the rest of the message, as the piece I've been working on isn't ready yet. This is why you're reading this today. I am now ready to advise you of the broad direction in which everything has been heading. We've talked about the nature of the test, why it had to be done in secret, the activities of the fire during the hidden season, the 5 signatures that indicate its completion, and the ancient words Bakan and Dokime, which described the information that God was actually recording about you. And now I'd like to condense all of this into a single point, the most profound truth, which, when fully accepted, leads all other factors to reorder themselves. What you would do for God was not the focus of the exam. The exam focused on the person you would become as you developed your connection with God. In the utter lack of evidence that He was present, none of your performance in His service, accomplishments in His name, or ways you were valuable, productive, or obviously faithful are relevant. Although such items are significant, they were not the focus of the exam. Something more fundamental was being tested underlying all of that. The degree to which you would keep your identity, your orientation toward Him, and the truth in situations that are purposefully designed to obstruct your capacity to do so. And you did. You entered with feelings of abandonment and left with a certificate. You came in with reservations about your worth, and you're leaving with proof to back them up. You entered with the purpose of surviving, and you're leaving with the intention of being commissioned. You entered in stillness and emerged with a voice that reflected that silence. You are not the same person who competed in this season. It was never intended that you remain unchanged. The God who planned this test is not surprised by your transformation. I'd like to educate you about your current identification. You're a spiritual combatant. Not because reality did not strike you. It did. Not because of your inexperience with falls. You succeeded. However, you returned to the posture of faithfulness because the ground rose to meet you every time, even when you didn't feel it or had no legitimate reason to do so. Over time, this has created a characteristic within you that is less prone to breaking. Currently, you hold your position. You maintain it discreetly, with no indication of performance. As a result, people in crisis will approach you. The majority of people seek stability within themselves. You are a trailblazer. You were the first person to enter a region that no one in your immediate vicinity had mapped. You first entered the solitude of this type of formation. And the path you've walked through it, every decision you've made, and every time you've chosen faithfulness over convenience is now a path that others who follow you can take. You did not simply endure. You marked the trail. You are a disruptor of cycles. Something ends with you. A pattern that has developed in your family, community, or relationships. Something inherited but never examined, causing harm that was never fully apparent. It ends with you. The fire worked quietly in you, not because you declared it loudly. The process of removing what was not yours and keeping only what was genuine. And what is true within you does not perpetuate that pattern. You are a conduit for energy. The confusion that once dimmed you now serves as the foundation of your ministry. The places where you couldn't see, where the darkness was thickest and the questions were loudest, are precisely where you will one day sit with someone else who can't see, and you will be able to confidently assert, not from theory, but from lived experience, that the light returns. That the response does not always manifest as anticipated. That the God who remained silent in the darkness was not absent. And that individual will accept your account because they are convinced you were present. You're a constructor. God's reward for you in the upcoming season is not meant to be enjoyed and stored on a shelf. This consists of materials. Have a purpose that is meaningful. Depth in relationships. Assignments that will last indefinitely. You are about to build something. Additionally, the foundation for that structure was built during the concealed season. Every day of faithfulness that felt like nothing was a stone being laid in the ground of what is to come. I'd like to tell you about an individual. 3 years ago, a man in this community experienced a complete breakdown, an unraveling, not a setback. In a single season, he lost everything he had worked so hard to build over the previous 15 years, including his professional reputation, financial stability, and several of the relationships on which he had relied. This was made more complicated by the fact that none of the events had a clear cause. There was no obvious point at which events deteriorated. It simply collapsed, indicating a deeper restructuring that is taking place beneath the surface. During the first 18 months, he used every method he knew of. He devised a plan. He established connections. He explained his situation to people who he believed could help. He prayed urgently and desperately. Also, there was no movement. He made a decision at 18 months that he now considers to be the most important of his life. He stopped providing an explanation. He deleted the social media accounts. He stopped interacting with others not out of resentment, but because he realized that a matter had to be settled between him and God before it could be resolved in any other situation. He kept what he called a consecrated silence for 40 days. He continued his employment. He continued to meet his obligations. However, he remained silent, present, and available in every moment that was not occupied by something important, remaining faithful to the small thing right in front of him. On the 37th day, his phone rang. A company he had never contacted was offering him a position that did not exist 6 months ago, at a salary that was more than double what he had lost. The change did not happen on day 37, as he later told me. The transformation had been occurring in the absence of sound. The outside world realized what had been accomplished internally on day 37. Before his public promotion, he was vindicated quietly. The reception room was never silent. The formation was silence. Currently, I can hear the patriarch saying this. I did not keep this secret from you as a form of punishment. I kept it confidential because if you had known it was a test, you would have tried to pass it. Your performance did not meet my expectations. Your attendance was essential. Unguarded, unpolished, and still trusting you despite their attempts and failures. I was building that. That's what I discovered. I am now entrusting it with future occurrences. Earlier in this letter, I mentioned a discovery made by a neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake about the gamma brainwave and how the decline effect affects it, as well as a 7-minute practice developed based on research conducted at Princeton and MIT that has the ability to reverse suppression. I am eager to resolve this situation at this time, as your current position is exactly the threshold for which it was meant. It is critical to understand the following. Individuals born with a naturally greater degree of gamma frequency, those who have the type of calling we've been discussing today, feel the decrease effect more intensely than the majority. As a result of the bigger mismatch between their self-perception and their current level of mental functioning. The previously keen intuition appears to have lessened in intensity. The lucidity that was once effortless now requires effort. The experience of being in the flow, of going through life with ease and resonance, appears to be a relic of the past. No, that gap is not a character flaw. There is a frequency discrepancy. Additionally, it is quantifiable. After almost 3 decades of studying the brain's response to specific auditory frequencies, Dr. Lake determined that the gamma wave did not evaporate. It grows quiet. Furthermore, the term dormant differs from gone. Dormant means that it is awaiting reactivation. The Genius Song is a 7-minute digital music piece created expressly to do this. You wear headphones, keep your posture, and listen. Meditation practice is unnecessary. There is no previous experience. It does not require adherence to a specific belief system to perform properly. The task is completed by technology. Brain entrainment technology calibrated to the gamma frequency is transmitted in a format that may be used from anywhere, reactivating the quiescent frequency. I'd want to inform you of a woman who describes herself as having exhausted all available resources in an attempt to locate her desired object. She had engaged in retreat circuits, yoga practices, meditation programs, and spiritual communities, all of which had provided her with positive experiences. A revelation there, a moment of calm here. However, the connection she wanted, the experience of being fully in touch with something concrete, was never realized. She approached Dr. Lake's work with low expectations. She had no further assets to surrender. And that is exactly how she started. She stopped trying to find words to describe the improvements that occurred after 2 weeks of the 7-minute daily routine. She said, "You see, there is only one thing." She mentioned that there were coincidences. She remarked that it was as if someone had tuned in, as if the universe and she had finally discovered a common frequency, and that the conversation she had been seeking to have her entire life had only just begun. Allow me to be candid for a moment. A single practice will not replace the formation that occurred throughout your concealed season. What the fire has created within you is priceless, and it is uniquely yours. However, gamma reactivation does not replace that formation. It is what allows you to work from it. It is the difference between having a gift and being able to use it, or between knowing one's identity and having the mental clarity and intuitive acuity to live in line with that knowledge in the present. You completed the difficult portion. The formation has been finished. Do not end it. Shut it down. The manner in which you close an object that has been purposely opened and should be sealed with equal care. However, before I address the issues that I believe demand attention in your life today, I'd like to give you a useful tool for the shift. Emerging from a test season is not automatic. The knowledge that the test has been completed does not instantaneously reorganize all of the internal structures that were developed throughout the surviving period. And the most common event for individuals who have been chosen at this very threshold, as I have seen countless times, is that they arrive at the door of the chance they have been looking forward to and are unclear of how to proceed. As a result, I would like you to take the following step. I refer to it as the receiving procedure. 4 simple steps that are often missed when not recognized as necessary. Acknowledging the shift is the first step. No, not to the entire globe. Not to everyone in your vicinity. To oneself. Allow yourself to articulate it concisely in your head at this time. The season has ended. I am transferring to the next position. That acknowledgement is significant. It indicates that you've moved from survival to receiving. The next step is to exit survival mode.